The clock read 8:42 a.m. when Kendrick Robinson pulled into the lot outside Greenville Municipal Courthouse. South Carolina's warm morning sun stretched long shadows across the asphalt. Kendrick exhaled slowly. He hated being late. As a seasoned federal prosecutor, discipline and punctuality were part of his DNA. But today, life had other plans. This was supposed to be a simple morning, just a routine hearing over a property tax adjustment for the home his grandmother had left him. The city had inexplicably raised the taxes, and Kendrick had spent weeks gathering evidence to prove the error. That house wasn't just real estate. It was the heart of his childhood, where he learned right from wrong under the watchful eye of the woman who raised him. Wearing a crisp navy suit and white shirt, Kendrick looked every bit the professional, even if his morning had been anything but smooth. A sudden phone call about an ongoing human trafficking case had thrown everything off. The defense had filed a last-minute motion, and Kendrick had to respond. He handled it swiftly, then raced to court, knowing he'd be cutting it close. As he climbed the courthouse steps, his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. The judge in Greenville is known for being tough on tardiness. Be careful. He tucked the phone into his briefcase with a sigh. He wasn't worried. He had the facts, but the warning echoed in his mind. Inside, the courthouse was a far cry from the pristine federal buildings Kendrick was used to. Faded beige walls, worn-out seats, and the scent of stale coffee and paper filled the air. The place buzzed with quiet anxiety. People clutched folders, whispered over paperwork, nervously awaiting their turn for parking tickets or minor disputes. He checked his watch. 8:50 a.m. 10 minutes to spare. Barely enough time to find the right room. He followed the hallway signs until he reached room 204. The name etched in brass. Judge Charles Whitman. Adjusting his tie, Kendrick stepped in. The courtroom was already filling. He found a seat near the back and opened his folder, scanning his notes one last time. Then the judge entered. Tall, silver-haired, with icy blue eyes, Judge Whitman commanded silence without a word. His gaze sliced through the room, sharp and unforgiving. "All rise," the bailiff announced. The room stood in unison. Kendrick joined them, straight-backed and focused. Case after case moved quickly, the judge calling names with robotic precision. His voice was cold, mechanical. Kendrick noticed something odd. A man in a suit walked in late, unnoticed. Moments later, a casually dressed young woman did the same. Again, no reaction. Kendrick made a mental note. At 9:15 a.m., his name was called. He approached the podium calmly, evidence in hand. But the air shifted. The judge's eyes narrowed. "You're late, Mr. Robinson," he snapped. "Do you think the court's time is less valuable than your own?" Kendrick raised a hand slightly, acknowledging the point. "Your Honor, I apologize. I was responding to urgent federal matters." "Excuses do not excuse tardiness," the judge cut him off. "This court operates on order. If you can't follow that, re-evaluate your priorities." Dozens of eyes turned to Kendrick. He stayed calm. "I understand, Your Honor. If I may, I'd like to present my case regarding the property tax adjustment." But the judge wasn't done. "Before we get to that, there's the matter of contempt. Tardiness undermines this court. You are hereby fined $750. Gasps rippled through the room. Kendrick's jaw tightened, but he didn't react. "May I explain, Your Honor?" he asked, voice steady. The gavel struck the bench. "You may not. Consider this a lesson in respecting this court." Kendrick stepped back, a storm brewing behind his composed expression. He glanced around. The earlier latecomers, still unscolded. The disparity was blatant. This wasn't about a fine, it was something deeper. Returning to his seat, Kendrick began taking notes, not about the tax case, but about the courtroom itself, the bias, the silence, the expressions of disbelief from others. By the time his name was called again, the atmosphere had changed. Kendrick rose, every step deliberate. "Your Honor," he began, "this folder contains documentation showing a 30% increase in assessed property tax without cause or notification. The original value was consistent for 5 years. Judge Whitman barely looked up. "I'll review it. But your tardiness remains unacceptable. Do you think your federal responsibilities justify disrespecting this court?" Kendrick held his ground. "The case involved human trafficking, Your Honor. I meant no disrespect, but surely we agree some matters require urgent attention." The judge wasn't moved. Rules apply to all, no exceptions. But Kendrick wasn't done. He took a breath and asked plainly, "Your Honor, are those rules applied equally to everyone in this courtroom?" A hush fell. The judge stiffened. "Are you questioning this court's integrity, Mr. Robinson?" "I'm asking for clarity. Fairness matters to me and to everyone here." The gavel struck again. "Your fine stands. I won't tolerate baseless accusations." Kendrick nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor." But this wasn't over. Back at his seat, he discreetly pulled out his phone. Notes became evidence. This wasn't a one-off injustice. It was a pattern. Around him, others noticed it too. An older black man offered a quiet, knowing glance. A young law student scribbled furiously in her notebook. As court adjourned, Kendrick lingered. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Outside, he stood on the courthouse steps. His thumb hovered over his assistant's number. Then he stopped. Not yet. He reopened his notes. What he'd witnessed wasn't incidental. It was systemic. The seeds of something bigger had been planted. Back in his car, Kendrick opened his briefcase, pulling out his badge. The golden emblem of the Department of Justice glinted in the sunlight. He had made his decision. He walked back into the courtroom. By now, most cases were done. Judge Whitman, visibly tired, flipped through papers. Kendrick approached the podium again, badge in hand. The clerk looked up, startled. The judge scowled. "Court's over, Mr. Robinson. You'll need an appointment." Kendrick's voice was calm, firm. "With respect, Your Honor, I believe introductions are in order." He held up his badge for all to see. "I'm Kendrick Robinson, Assistant United States Attorney, Northern District of South Carolina. 10 years in the DOJ, handling trafficking, corruption, civil rights violations." The judge froze. "I was late this morning due to a federal emergency, but I couldn't help but notice how this courtroom handled tardiness very differently depending on who was involved." The room went silent. "If you feel there was misconduct, file a complaint," the judge said stiffly. "I already began," Kendrick replied, raising his notebook. "I've documented the disparities, especially along racial lines. As an officer of the court, I have an obligation to report bias wherever I see it." "Are you accusing this court?" the judge began. "I'm stating facts," Kendrick interrupted. "Facts that concern fairness, equality, justice." The clerk paused mid-keystroke. The student in the corner didn't stop writing. The judge cleared his throat. "This court takes such matters seriously. You may go." Kendrick picked up his badge and turned to leave. "Thank you, Your Honor," he said. "I'll make sure this is addressed properly." He walked out again, but now the eyes on him weren't just watching. They were following. Outside, he began drafting an email. Every observation, every instance of disparity. He hit send. This was only the beginning.